So a couple weeks ago, Dana White came out and said that he was going to announce fights for UFC 300 that we wouldn't even be able to fathom, ladies and gentlemen. And he's doing just that because he announced a couple fights that I can't believe that they're actually at UFC 300. And let's go over it a little bit, right? Because I wanted to make this video a couple days ago, but I wanted to give the UFC a little bit more time to see if they were gonna, throw any surprises, right? And surprises, they did deliver on that. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the first fight that I have a gripe with: Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. Who asked for this? Who asked for this fight? Literally, who asked to see Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison at UFC 300? This is UFC 300, right? They're supposed to come up with some crazy good matchups. Given, I don't have a problem with them fighting. I don't have a problem with seeing Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison, right? I would love to see that fight. But at UFC 300, how many more cards are we gonna have throughout the year? You know what I'm saying? That we just can't slap that fight in. We couldn't get Shavkat Rakhmonov versus Leon Edwards? No, we got Holly Holm versus Kayla Harrison. All right. So yesterday, we got another announcement. We got I cannot believe that this fight is actually at UFC 300. Jessica Andrade versus Marina Rodriguez. I would take a fight with Anthony Smith getting his ass whooped again over this fight. I would see Tony Ferguson taking his 8th loss in a row over this freaking fight. I don't get it. I don't get it. Whenever Dana White said that he was going to give us fights that we couldn't freaking fathom, well, he is 100% delivering on his word, because I cannot believe that some of these fights are actually at UFC 300. I know, I kind of sound a little bit like a hater, but I just kind of want to drive that point home that last year, right, especially the last couple months of 2023, they were pushing UFC 300 with so much freaking hype. And so far, right, UFC 300 seems underwhelming, given there's a lot of great fights in this card. But they promised us banger after banger after banger. And I'm be honest, it's a little bit underwhelming. Just a little bit. The main event, when they announce it, is going to have to kick ass, bro. It's going to have to be a main event that's just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. You know, when Joe Rogan freaking just grabs DC's shoulder and starts pushing him back, it's going to have to give me that same reaction. But yeah, right now, currently, the way that UFC 300 looks, it's okay. It's good. But it's not, whoa. It's just not giving me that reaction so far. There's fighters out there right now that have been representing themselves in the UFC for years, right? And they're veterans of the organization. There's no doubt about that. Now, think about this really quickly. They have the opportunity to represent themselves in a crazy historical pay-per-view card like UFC 300. But a fighter who's never stepped foot in a UFC cage gets to do it. To me, that's a freaking huge miss, UFC. That is a huge freaking miss on your part. I just refuse to believe that we couldn't get someone like Corey Sandhagen, Umar Nurmagomedov, Josh Emmett, Edson Barbosa, Derek Lewis, Dan Hooker, Jalen Turner. I would even take watching Bilal Muhammad fight in this card, but no, we couldn't. We just couldn't. For some freaking reason, we just couldn't see that. We're going to get Jessica Andrade, 42-year-old Holly Holm, and a fighter that's never fought for the UFC before, ladies and gentlemen. That is what we're going to have to settle with for UFC 300. And I would give it a pass, right? I would give UFC 300 a pass if it weren't for the fact that Dana White and the UFC hyped up this card so freaking much, right? Dana White came out and said that, UFC 300 is going to be an amazing freaking card. It's going to be a card of the year type, but UFC 299, literally the card right before it, could probably even be better. It could probably even be better. So, in my opinion, no, I don't think the UFC gets a pass on this one at all. Look, and I'm not even kidding. I'm going to name some fights that I would much rather see at UFC 300. Kevin Holland versus Michael Venom Page should be at UFC 300. They got Peter Yan in the prelims against Song Yadong. That fight should be at UFC 300. They got Gilbert Burns versus Jack Della Maddalena, right? They got Pedro Munoz versus Kyler Phillips. Why isn't that fight at UFC 300? I don't know. They got Matheus Gamrot versus RDA, Rafael dos Anjos. Why isn't Rafael dos Anjos at UFC 300? That's super weird. I would much rather see that fight at 300. They got Curtis Blades versus Jason Almeida. Would much rather see that. Oh, don't even get me started at the Dustin Poirier versus Benoit Saint-Denis. That fight should have been at UFC 300. Do you guys understand the point? Do you guys get me? Like, UFC 299 has really, really great fights and good enough fights to rival UFC 300 right freaking now. Now, don't get me wrong, UFC 300 has good matchups like Max Holloway versus Justin Gaethje and Charles Oliveira versus Arman Tsarukyan. However, based on all the hype they gave UFC 300 last year, it's a little bit underwhelming. And I'm just being completely freaking honest. I need a fight that's going to win me over. There is the main card that is yet to be announced, and hopefully that fight can win this card. Because in its current state, it's a little bit disappointing, if I'm being completely freaking honest. I don't know if Dana White has been focused on power slap. I don't know if he just wants us to not like him deliberately. But right now, in its current state, I give UFC 300 like a 7 out of 10, if I'm being completely freaking honest. We need a good main event, but we can only hope. We can only hope. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you guys agree with me? Disagree with me? What are your current thoughts on UFC 300 currently? Let me know down in the comment section below. And as always, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace out.